What often follows emotional uncertainty is a cycle of interpretation, where every imagined detail feels connected and meaningful, even without confirmation. When someone feels hurt or left behind, it is natural for attention to shift toward the idea of what the other person might be experiencing now. However, this focus can easily turn inward pain into outward assumptions. In reality, people who have moved on or made different choices are usually navigating their own complex and imperfect lives, not playing out the symbolic roles the mind assigns to them. There is rarely a single hidden truth waiting to be revealed in a dramatic way. Instead, there are only separate human experiences unfolding independently, each shaped by their own decisions, misunderstandings, and emotions. Rumors, imagined scenarios, and internal narratives can feel intense, especially when they seem to provide emotional closure or validation, but they often dissolve when faced with direct reality and honest communication. The most stabilizing approach in such moments is to step away from guessing what others are feeling or doing, and instead focus on what is known, what is confirmed, and what can actually be influenced in your own life. Emotional recovery becomes more grounded when attention shifts from external speculation to internal healing, processing loss, rebuilding confidence, and allowing time to reduce the intensity of attachment. Over time, clarity replaces assumption, and what once felt like a complex hidden story becomes simply a past chapter that no longer requires interpretation. She noticed the hesitation whenever their future was mentioned. She watched him freeze when your memory flashed across his face. And now, with that date approaching, she knows he is stepping into something he never actually wanted. She knows the decision they're making together is not born from love, but from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of loneliness, fear of losing control. That's why they are so desperate to keep you in the dark. Let this new line strike like lightning, bright, undeniable, unforgettable. The truth is, the one who betrayed you has been living in regret for far longer than you imagine. They thought choosing her would make their life easier. They thought hurting you would free them, but instead, they trapped themselves inside a maze of their own choices. Every night, when the lights go dim, they are haunted by the image of you walking away. They replay the moment they broke your heart. They remember the strength you showed when you said nothing. And now, as the day approaches, where both of them are being forced into something they didn't plan, they are praying that somehow you don't find out, because your knowledge alone would shatter whatever illusion they still have left. And here is the final opening for this part. Slow, suspenseful, echoing like footsteps in an empty hallway. What they don't understand is that the universe has already shifted the table. You are not the broken one anymore. You are not the abandoned one anymore. The power they once stole from you has returned to your hands without you even noticing. That date they're hiding, that decision they fear you discovering, it isn't a sign of their strength. It's a sign that their story is closing while yours is rising. Whether they realize it or not, they are walking into a chapter they never wanted, while you stand on the edge of the destiny you always deserved. And the moment they finally face the consequences of their choices, they will remember the one truth they hoped would never come back to them. When they lost you, they lost everything. My beloved child, lean in closely, because the moment you begin this part, the energy around you tightens like a thread being pulled. Something is moving toward you with quiet intensity. The person who betrayed you for another woman is desperately trying to keep one truth hidden, the truth that on a day rapidly approaching, both of them are being pushed into a decision they never wanted, a decision that exposes every crack in their story. And you must stay with me till the end, because the revelations coming now are not just surprising, they are life-changing, pulse-shaking, and designed to reveal why destiny kept you protected from what they were walking into. Now listen to this new opening, sharp, unsettling, like a door creaking in a silent room. They thought choosing her over you would give them a life of comfort. They thought betraying you would make them feel powerful. But now, with the clock ticking toward that hidden date, they are realizing something terrifying. Their entire world was built on fear, lies, and pretended emotions. And the reason they don't want you to know this is simple. If you knew the truth, you wouldn't feel hurt, you wouldn't feel rejected, you would feel relieved. You would see that everything they left you for is now falling apart, brick by brick, right in front of their eyes. Here comes a fresh opening, deep, emotional, magnetic. The woman they chose over you is no longer standing with confidence. Behind closed doors, her doubts are growing louder than her intentions. She feels him slipping. She senses the emotional distance widening. She sees his eyes drift into memories that don't belong to her. She hears the hesitation in his breath. She notices the coldness in his touch. And as that day approaches, the day they're supposed to make a choice together, she is afraid. Afraid he will walk into it with a heart that isn't hers. Afraid he will stand beside her while thinking of you. Afraid the truth she tried to bury is about to resurrect. Let the next opening hit like a storm, powerful, unexpected, unforgettable. The person who betrayed you is carrying a secret that even she doesn't fully understand. He never stopped thinking about you. He never healed from the guilt. He never escaped the regret. Every morning, he wakes up beside her. And every night, he tries to convince himself he made the right decision. But his soul keeps dragging him back toward you. And now, the pressure of that approaching date is suffocating him. He feels trapped, cornered, powerless. He fears that once the truth leaks, everyone, including you, will finally see that he lost the only person who ever truly understood him. And now, as this part draws to its intense peak, here comes the final opening. Slow, suspenseful, gripping. You need to stay with me, because this is the moment where the story flips. They don't want you to know that the decision they're making is not a celebration. It is not love. It is not commitment. It is a consequence. It is something forced, something pressured, something built on fear of judgment and fear of losing everything they pretended to have. And right now, as you watch this, the universe is positioning you above the storm they created. You were never meant to be inside their chaos. You were meant to rise beyond it. They hide this truth because it exposes their downfall and reveals your strength. My beloved child, breathe slowly and pay attention, because the deeper we go, the more the truth begins to tremble in the air around you. You are stepping into the part where the mask finally slips, where the reality they've been hiding becomes impossible to contain. The person who betrayed you for another woman is living in a fear so deep, so consuming, that they can barely sleep. They know that if you ever discovered what is happening on that day, they would lose every ounce of pride they're still clinging to. And the reason they're so terrified is because that date isn't about love. It's about consequences catching up to both of them at the same time. Now enter this new opening, quiet but sharp, like the sound of glass cracking. There's a kind of unspoken understanding that can build between two people without either of them fully naming it. You pass each other, and something lingers longer than it should. A glance that holds a little too much meaning, a moment of silence that feels heavier than casual. Sometimes, it even reaches a point where one of you almost says what's been sitting in your chest for far too long, but the timing never quite allows it. Still, the feeling doesn't disappear. It stays, quietly shaping how you see each other. Over time, distance doesn't always weaken that connection the way people expect it to. Instead, it can make the memory sharper, the awareness stronger. You begin noticing how your thoughts circle back more often than you admit, how familiar names or reminders seem to surface in ordinary places simply because your mind is already tuned to them. It can feel as if everything is pointing in a direction, but in reality, it's often your own emotions trying to organize uncertainty into meaning. What really changes in moments like these is not fate moving things around, but your awareness becoming more honest about what hasn't been resolved. You start to recognize that avoidance doesn't erase feeling, it only delays it, and eventually, what was pushed aside begins to return in quieter but more persistent ways, asking to be acknowledged rather than ignored. Whether or not two people end up together, these experiences often serve as reflection points, showing you what mattered to you more deeply than you admitted at the time. And in that sense, the pullback you feel isn't a cosmic signal, it's the natural return of unfinished emotions, asking for clarity, understanding, and, if possible, honest conversation, so things can finally be seen for what they truly are. And he knows that whatever step they're taking on that hidden date is not one he wants, but he is stuck, cornered, pressured, pulled into something he cannot escape without shattering everything they've pretended to build together. And finally, this last opening, slow, mysterious, gripping, like the pull of destiny. The reason they don't want you to know the truth is because the truth would set you completely free from every memory that ever hurt you. It would show you that their world is collapsing exactly at the point where yours is rising. It would show you that the universe saved you from walking into a future filled with regret, manipulation, and emotional exhaustion. While they step into something they never wanted, you are stepping into your power, stronger, wiser, untouchable. And the moment they face the consequences of their actions, they will understand the one reality they've been running from. You are the blessing they were never worthy of. My beloved child, stay right here with me, because this part carries the kind of truth that makes people freeze mid-scroll, stare at their screen, and whisper, "How is this even happening?" The person who betrayed you for another woman is standing on the edge of a moment they cannot escape, a moment that exposes everything they tried to hide, everything they wanted to bury, and everything they never wanted you to know. And as that date approaches, the pressure on both of them is turning into panic. You're going to feel the intensity rising with every word. Don't move, don't blink, just stay with me until the very end, because what's coming now is explosive. Now let this new opening hit like a heartbeat pounding in the silence. Behind the scenes, their world is spiraling faster than they can control. The arguments are getting louder, the misunderstandings are getting sharper, the regrets are getting heavier. She is demanding answers he doesn't have. He is pretending to be calm while breaking on the inside. And every time your name flashes through his memory, even when he tries to hide it, she feels threatened, insecure, unsettled. The closer they get to that hidden date, the more she realizes he is walking into it with a heart full of fear, not love. And that fear is showing in everything he does, everything he says, every step he takes. Now enter this fresh opening, a shift so deep that most people would stop and react right here if they were watching. They're pretending to prepare for something big, but the truth is, the closer the moment comes, the more he is suffocating. He feels trapped inside a choice that was never meant for him. He's questioning every decision he made. In emotionally charged relationship dynamics, it is also common for uncertainty to escalate when communication becomes strained or expectations feel mismatched. One person may begin seeking reassurance through increased pressure or repeated questioning, while the other may respond by withdrawing or becoming less expressive due to feeling overwhelmed or unsure how to meet those expectations. This creates a cycle where each reaction intensifies the other, leading to growing tension rather than clarity. From the outside, silence or hesitation might be interpreted as emotional absence or hidden regret, but internally, it is often a mix of anxiety, conflict avoidance, and difficulty articulating feelings under pressure. When emotional stakes feel high, even simple conversations about the future can feel heavy, causing one person to freeze or deflect rather than respond directly. Meanwhile, the person seeking certainty may interpret that lack of response as confirmation of their fears, which further increases emotional urgency. In reality, these patterns are usually less about hidden truths and more about two people struggling to communicate effectively under stress. Assumptions about what someone is, quote, really feeling can become especially strong when attachment is deep, but they often reflect emotional projection rather than verified understanding. Clarity in such situations rarely comes from reading between the lines. It comes from slowing down the emotional escalation and returning to direct, honest conversation. When speculation is replaced with communication, the intensity of imagined outcomes tends to soften, allowing both clarity and emotional balance to return. Breakthrough. Your divine turning point. They fear the day you discover this, because when you do, you'll realize you were the one saved, not the one left behind. My beloved child, don't look away now. This is the moment everything they've been hiding begins to crack open. The air around that approaching date is vibrating with fear, tension, and unfinished karma. The person who betrayed you for another woman is standing at the doorway of a truth they never prepared for. Every step they take toward that day feels heavier than the last, like their past choices are dragging chains behind them. They thought they could walk confidently. They thought they could pretend. They thought they could keep you blind forever. But destiny has a strange way of revealing exactly what was meant to stay hidden. And on that day, on the very day they're terrified you'll find out, everything they built on lies begins to tremble in a way that even they can't ignore anymore. Now let this new opening grip your soul like a hand pulling you closer. As that date approaches, both of them are mentally falling apart. She is crying behind closed doors, wiping her face before anyone sees. She is checking his phone, checking his tone, checking every small detail, as if she can sense a truth she cannot fully explain. The doubt in her voice is getting sharper. The insecurity in her eyes is getting stronger. She can feel him slipping. She can feel the distance spreading between them, like a quiet storm. And the part that haunts her the most is the one she won't dare say aloud. She knows his heart never fully belonged to her. She knows she took someone who wasn't hers, and now, as that day comes closer, she fears she's losing someone she never truly had. Here comes the next opening, powerful, slow, devastating in its clarity. He is breaking on the inside in ways he can no longer hide. The guilt is rising, the regret is burning, the memories of you are becoming louder than the moments he's living now. He keeps replaying everything he did wrong, your kindness, your patience, your loyalty, the way you held space for him when he didn't even know how to hold space for himself. And now, with that date practically breathing down his neck, he feels trapped, walking toward a future that feels forced, heavy, suffocating. He keeps imagining what it would have been like if he had chosen differently, if he chose you, if he stayed, if he listened to his heart instead of his impulses. The universe is making him face the truth. He betrayed the one person who ever truly loved him, and life is making him feel the consequences. Now let this opening crash down like thunder, unavoidable, unstoppable, unforgettable. She is desperate now. She's trying everything to hold on. She's offering fake comfort, fake promises, fake smiles. She's trying to convince him they're stable, they're aligned, they're meant to walk into that day together. But deep down, she can feel the truth trembling inside him. She notices the way he goes quiet whenever the future is mentioned. She sees how his eyes drift, how his hands shake, how his voice hesitates. She knows there is someone else in his heart, someone he never healed from, someone he never forgot, someone whose shadow is still stronger than her presence. And the closer that day comes, the more terrified she becomes, because she can already feel destiny pulling him away in ways she can't fight. And now, the final opening of this part, slow, suspenseful, the kind of truth that hooks every viewer until the very last second. What they are stepping into on that hidden date is not a moment of happiness. Emotional recovery becomes more stable when attention shifts away from trying to interpret other people's unseen experiences and instead focuses on grounding oneself in present reality. After a painful connection ends, the mind can become highly alert to imagined signals, patterns, or meanings, especially when closure feels incomplete. This heightened sensitivity can make everyday thoughts feel like insight, when in fact, they are often reflections of unresolved emotion. The sense that a particular moment marks, quote, consequences arriving, or that external events are aligning in a meaningful way, is usually the brain's attempt to organize emotional discomfort into a structured story. While this can temporarily reduce uncertainty, it can also prolong attachment to the situation by keeping attention locked onto the other people's supposed journey rather than one's own. A more supportive approach is to gently separate emotional interpretation from factual reality. What is confirmed, what is directly observed, and what is assumed should be clearly distinguished, even when emotions push them together. Over time, this separation allows the intensity of the narrative to fade, making space for clarity, self-stability, and forward movement. Healing does not come from discovering hidden outcomes in someone else's life, but from slowly reclaiming energy that has been tied to uncertainty. As that process continues, what once felt like a dramatic unfolding story begins to lose its emotional charge and becomes part of the past, no longer directing present thoughts or future expectations. Consequences they created with their own choices, and as they step into the morning, the fear of you somehow discovering the truth clings to them like a shadow they cannot escape. Now feel this new opening, slow, tense, gripping like a suspense film where you can't look away even for a second. She is trying to hold everything together, but her hands are shaking. She is checking her reflection again and again, trying to convince herself that everything is fine, that today will bring stability, acceptance, security. But her heart knows the truth. All night, she barely slept. All night, she watched him toss and turn. All night, she felt his hesitations, his regrets, his unspoken words. And now, as the moment draws near, she is terrified that he will walk into this day with a heart that is fractured, confused, and emotionally somewhere far away. Somewhere you used to be. Now let this second opening strike with emotional intensity. He is trying to appear calm, but inside he is collapsing. Every memory of you rushes back like waves hitting a shore he abandoned long ago. The softness of your voice, the depth of your loyalty, the way you cared without demanding, the way you stood by him even when he didn't understand himself. And now, standing on the edge of the biggest consequence of his life, all he can think about is the life he could have had with you. A life of peace, of trust, of genuine connection. He realizes that what he destroyed was not just a relationship, it was his own chance at true emotional safety. And now, he is about to step into something he can't walk away from easily. Now enter this third opening. Sharp, stirring, filled with the weight of destiny. The moment they finally stand before the decision they are supposed to make today, everything inside him screams that this isn't right. His breath is unsteady, his hands are tense, his mind is racing, and she knows it. She feels it in the way he avoids eye contact. She senses it in the silence that grows between them. She sees it in the emptiness behind his forced smile. She understands now that the bond she tried to secure was built on borrowed emotions, borrowed from a love he had with someone else, borrowed from a heart that never fully belonged to her, borrowed from you. Now let this fourth opening rise like a storm, unstoppable, revealing, powerful. The truth hits both of them at once. This day doesn't feel like a beginning, it feels like an ending. The air grows tense, the emotions feel heavy, the energy is thick with regret, insecurity, and unspoken fears. They are standing together, but they are not standing united. The distance between them has never been wider. The connection has never been weaker. The silence has never been more painful. He is walking into something that feels like punishment instead of purpose. She is stepping into something that feels unstable instead of secure. And the universe is quietly whispering a truth they don't want to hear. This was never meant to work. And now, the final opening of this part. Slow, haunting, unforgettable. What they don't want you to know is that the moment this day arrives, both of them realize something they have been denying for too long. Everything they tried to build together was held up by fear, not love. Pressure, not passion. Consequences, not commitment. In the middle of relational tension, communication often becomes strained in ways that are easy to misinterpret. One person may withdraw emotionally, becoming quieter or less responsive, while the other may respond by seeking reassurance more urgently or trying to regain connection through repeated questions or emotional pressure. This dynamic can quickly escalate as each reaction reinforces the other's insecurity. What may appear on the surface as emotional detachment or hidden regret is often, in reality, a response to overwhelm, uncertainty, or difficulty managing conflict in the moment. When someone avoids eye contact, becomes less expressive, or seems distant, it does not necessarily indicate a lack of care. It may reflect internal conflict or an inability to articulate complex emotions under stress. Similarly, heightened emotional reactions from the other side often stem from fear of loss or instability rather than clarity about what the other person is truly feeling. In such situations, both individuals can become trapped in cycles of assumption, where each tries to interpret the other's behavior without full information. This can lead to growing frustration, emotional fatigue, and a sense that something irreversible is happening, even when the underlying issue is communication breakdown rather than final separation. Memory and attachment also play a strong role during these periods, as people tend to revisit earlier, more positive moments in the relationship when they feel uncertain, which can intensify longing and confusion. The most stabilizing path forward in these dynamics is not escalation or interpretation of silence, but slowing down emotional reactions enough to allow honest dialogue to occur. When assumptions are replaced with clear expression, much of the emotional intensity reduces, and the situation becomes easier to understand without relying on imagined conclusions. Tension builds like a wall between them. She accuses him of still loving you. She accuses him of never letting go. She accuses him of living in a past he refuses to bury. And for the first time, he doesn't deny it. He doesn't argue. He doesn't lie. He just stands there, silent, broken, unable to fake anything anymore. And the silence becomes the confession she dreaded more than any spoken truth. Now let this fourth opening hit like thunder, echoing, powerful, impossible to ignore. The pressure of the moment is too much. The truth they tried to hide from the world, from each other, from you, breaks out like a flood. He admits he feels trapped. He admits the future they're stepping into feels forced. He admits that the connection was built on impulsive decisions and emotional confusion. And she breaks. Tears, fear, anger, all blending into the reality she never wanted to face. Their perfect picture shatters. Their storyline collapses. The decision they were supposed to make today begins to crumble right in front of them. And now, the final opening of this part, slow, chilling, unforgettable. What neither of them wants you to know is that on the very day they were supposed to prove their stability to the world, they proved their instability to themselves. The cracks are now exposed. The truth is no longer avoidable. The regret in his heart is undeniable. The insecurity in hers is uncontainable. Their story is falling apart from the inside out, and destiny has made one thing painfully clear. They walked into a moment that was never meant for them, and now they're being forced to face the consequences of every choice they made without you. In moments of relational tension, communication can deteriorate in ways that easily invite misreading. One person may become quieter, less expressive, or emotionally withdrawn, not necessarily because affection is gone, but because they are overwhelmed or unsure how to handle conflict in real time. The other person, sensing distance, may respond with increased urgency, repeated questioning, or emotional intensity in an attempt to restore certainty. This creates a feedback loop where each reaction amplifies the other's insecurity. What looks like hidden regret or emotional detachment is often simply stress, avoidance, or difficulty articulating complex feelings under pressure. When emotions run high, even small behavioral changes, pauses in speech, reduced eye contact, or a lack of immediate reassurance can be interpreted as signs of deeper meaning, even when no clear message is intended. At the same time, heightened emotional responses are usually driven by fear of loss rather than clear understanding of what the other person truly feels. Both individuals can become trapped in assumptions, each trying to decode the other without full information, which gradually increases frustration and emotional exhaustion. In such states, memory tends to idealize earlier, calmer moments in the relationship, intensifying confusion and longing. The most constructive way forward is to slow down reactions and allow space for direct, honest communication, rather than relying on interpretation of silence or behavior.